Hey guys, welcome back to our channel. We are passionate about helping people with business and accounting. In today's video, we are going to talk about Dave Ramsey's 7 baby steps and how we implemented some of those steps into our financial plan. So if you're interested, keep on watching.
So a lot of people know Dave Ramsey's baby steps, and I think it's important for us to go over them because we did use them in some way, but there's other ways that I think people can utilize the baby steps or divert a little bit based on your personality type or the type of person that you are. What I love about the baby step is that they are steps that people can follow, especially if they aren't familiar with finances or need a lot more help, I think, than someone that's in our profession that is used to, working with finances almost on a daily basis.
Yeah.
So Stephanie, the first baby step in Dave Ramsey's 7 baby steps is save $1,000 quick emergency fund. What are your thoughts on that first baby step?
I think that's a good first step because most people, if they were to run into an emergency, would rely on a credit card to make the purchase or to get themselves out of the situation. So just having cash on hand, the term cash is king is a cliche term, but it's for a reason. You need cash to do things, right? And when you're already someone that's, in a financial situation where you're trying to get out of debt, you don't want to continue to add to that debt because it can be very discouraging to the individual. So having $1,000 ready, cash on hand while you're, working the other steps, I think is a great thing to have. So first step, $1,000, and then you move on to the next one.
Yeah, I completely agree. Baby step number 1, I have no problems with. I think that's a great baby step. We personally had a small emergency fund from the get-go, and it was more than $1,000. And that's another thing that I want to bring up is, like, if you're watching this and if you feel more comfortable with $3,000 or $5,000 in emergency fund, if your income allows that, then go for it. I mean, there's no, in my opinion, hard set rule that it has to be only $1,000, or the other way. If you could only afford $500 for your very first emergency fund, then start with $500. It really depends on where you're at in life, what your income is. But having that first, or having a type of emergency fund, like you mentioned, is important because you don't want to use credit cards. You don't want to use those as your emergency fund. It's easy to, and I know we can get in that conversation about, credit cards are good if you pay them off every month or what have you, and that's true. But it's, in our opinion, it's better just to have cash to pay for those emergencies that happen in life.
Right, I agree. And to your point, if someone's working these baby steps, it's probably because they're already in debt. And so, that's basically going into baby step number 2 is paying off your debt. Well, you don't want to be working on baby step number 2 and then have to add more debt to that.
That's right. So that's exactly right. So paying off debt is the second baby step in Dave Ramsey's 7 baby steps. And so what are your thoughts as far as having that be the second baby step, like paying off all debt except for the house?
Paying off all consumer debt makes sense to me. And consumer debt is that credit card debt, right? That credit card debt has higher interest rates, and they're designed for people to continue to pay on it for a long time. And so I've said this in previous videos, but that one item that you purchased or that one shopping spree that you did, 2 years ago, you're still paying on it today, and you don't even have the things that you purchased. And so that part makes sense to me, paying off all your consumer debt. Student loans, things like that, it depends, right? It depends on the situation.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree that credit card debt, store credit debt, furniture credit debt, even your car loan as a consumer debt, I would definitely use the snowball, pay the smallest first, and then go to the larger balances. Because the debt snowball does work psychologically. You might say, well, shouldn't you pay off the highest interest cards first? Well, if you have a $10,000 credit card that is high interest, but it's going to just take you forever to pay that off, it's going to psychologically mess with you. But if you got like a $500 collection and a $300 smaller credit card, and you have another small little consumer debt, if you can knock those out first, it will start building momentum in your journey to then have the confidence to pay off the other debt, especially if you're limited on cash flow. If you have a set amount of income, you have to pay your bills and all that, you only have a little bit of room left to use the extra cash to pay on debt. I think it's best to pay the small ones first. But yeah, I agree with student debt. That's the only one as far as how Dave Ramsey and what he talks about is like paying everything off, including your student debt before you start the next baby step, which is save 3 to 6 months. I would say, I personally would say, because that's what we did, is hold off on paying off your student loan, because that could like really hit you in the face, right? You're doing the snowball debt, you're paying off the small little credit cards and all these other little things, because some can be a couple $1,000s. Yeah. Then you get like a $80,000 student loan that it's like stops you in your tracks. Yeah. And it really depends. Like you said, if you're motivated, if you think debt is the enemy and debt is going to hinder you from building wealth, and in a lot of cases it can, then yeah, absolutely attack it. I think it helps people with that building confidence to build wealth. Is like, you know what? I'm going to attack this debt, including my student loan debt, once and for all, because I can't sleep at night, it makes me worried or what have you, then absolutely go for it. But if you're like us, like we saved ourselves out of debt. Mm-hmm. Like
Can you explain how we did that?
Well, we are natural savers, so that's another thing, is to understand what kind of person you are. If you're a natural saver like we are, use that strength. And so what we did is invest in good sound companies, and we were able to accumulate enough in savings, and not just like a checking account or savings account, into investments, where we're able to then take the winnings or the earnings of those investments and paid off all of our student loans. Yeah. Now, again, you would have to make sure you know what kind of individual you are to do that, and know that there's risk in investing. And that's another reason why I think people probably are better off just attacking the debt, because the debt is like a guaranteed thing that you could attack. Saving and investing, you got to know what you're doing. You got to know what kind of businesses you're going to invest in. There's a lot more to it. But if you're knowledgeable in the stock market and know what companies to invest in for a medium term, I think it took us 5-6 years to accumulate about 70,000 around there, to be able to pay off the rest of our student loans. But that was our strength, is to invest and pay that off. But
yeah, so I think it really depends on the personality type. So if you are not a natural saver, and as soon as the money's in your account, it needs to be spent, then I would say put that extra money towards your debt. Just make the extra payment on the principal, so you can get rid of the debt as soon as possible. If you're a natural saver and you have researched investments and you're comfortable with investing, then I would say pay off your credit card debt first.
For sure.
But your long-term debt, like your mortgage and your student loans and things like that, you can hold off on and start investing, which also kind of ties into the retirement funds, right? So if you're working for someone, you're investing if you have a 401k. You're putting money away and your employer is matching your money, then you're kind of hitting baby steps 2, 3, and 4 together, where you're focused on investing, putting money away, because that's kind of savings. And then once you've accumulated enough in your investments, then you use it to pay off the debt.
Yeah, and that's what we did, and it worked for us. Step 3, baby step 3 is save 3 to 6 months of expenses for an emergency. So you're beefing up your initial emergency fund for step 3. So what do you think about having that be step 3, or what are your thoughts on 3 to 6 months?
Again, it goes back to the personality type, right? It goes back to, are you a natural saver or do you have to spend the money? Because if you're a natural saver, then saving 3 to 6 months is going to be easier for you. If you're not a natural saver, I would say put even more money towards investing. What are your thoughts on that?
So I love that he's put 3 to 6 months. I actually like the order of step 1 through 3.
Okay.
I do like, start with a small $1,000 investment emergency fund. That's basically what we did. I do say pay off all the consumer debt except for, in my opinion, like large ones like student loans and mortgage, but pay off all your credit card debt, attack that second, and then beef up with this. You've paid off, like, let's say you paid off credit cards and your car loan, right? Let's say that's $600 you freed up. You can use that $600 to beef up your 3 to 6 months emergency fund. As far as like whether it be 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, it depends on the person. It depends on how secure your job is. Is it something that is seasonal? Is it something that you can find another job, a similar job at a different industry, or if things go south or what have you? It's a volatile industry. It depends, but anywhere from 3 to 6 months, I do like that. Now going into step 4, in the baby steps, this is the 4th thing. So according to Dave Ramsey's baby steps, this is the first one is you save $1,000, you pay off all your consumer debt, you beef up your emergency fund from 3 to 6 months. So far, I'm so good. But to have this be step 4, and you mentioned that too, I honestly think step 4, invest 15% of your income for retirement, like in 401ks and Roth IRAs. I think that should be part of step 2 or 3 or even before there. The reason why I say that is because, especially if you work for a company that is matching your 401k, I'd want to start that earlier. The earlier, the better. If you're 18, 19, 20, if you look at any charts of how compound interest works, and how much more you'll make over the years from 18, 19, 20, all the way to like in your retirement age. I mean, it's just incredible how the compound interest grows. So I would recommend start investing and matching into your 401k probably as soon as you pay off all your consumer debt.
Yeah.
At the same time, put 3 to 6 months. Now, if cash is restricted, and that's why you mentioned in importance of budgeting, because if you budget, then you can take out more money where you're able to do more. You're able to put, some money into 401k. Maybe not 15%. Maybe you can do 5%. Maybe you can do 10%, right? So I would still do the other stuff, right? Beef up your emergency fund, pay off all your debt, but try to figure out somehow to also, at the same time, put a little bit of money into a Roth IRA or 401k so you can get that going. And then once you beefed up, and then once you get to step 4, you've already started that. My opinion is you've already started that.
Well, I think that's a great point, because if you've already, because usually 401ks, it comes out of your paycheck, right? So you never actually see the money.
Right.
It's not like it's coming into your account and then you're transferring it out. Yeah. So what I like about that strategy is you're left with a certain amount of money to play with, and that's what you budget against. Yep. And so you're saving for retirement. It's not even part of the equation at that point, because you're learning how to live with what you already have.
That's right.
And then you budget on that amount.
That's right.
So I love that strategy. And that's what we did. I started my 401k at 18 years old. I never missed the money because I never saw it, right? Yeah. And now seeing what my portfolio looks like, it's incredible. But it's what you said, that compounding, what do you call it? The compound method?
Compound interest, compound,
yeah. So it's just like this long-term, you don't even miss it because you never had it type of situation. So I love that for sure.
It's like self-tax, right? You get tax, you know, taxes come out of your paycheck. This is like another tax, but it's your own. You're taxing yourself for the future of yourself.
Well, and your employer's putting money in too.
That's exactly right.
So that's free money.
That's free money. You don't want to, you know, if they're matching like 50% of what you're matching, that's, if you're putting in 600, they're going to put 300. That's $300 a month that you're not taking advantage of. So yeah, that's the only thing. Now I get why Dave Ramsey does the baby steps, is because people need structure, and sometimes having things in order, especially if you're strapped on cash and you're like, there's no additional $200 I can put into, you know, like how I recommend, you know, putting 100, 200, whatever, while you're getting yourself out of debt, while you're saving up for beefing up your emergency fund. And so if you can't, then you can't. Then you just follow the baby steps and you wait until you've gotten all those things done, because, you know, all the money is laser focused on one thing at a time.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, and that's why people love Dave Ramsey's baby steps, that works better, is to do one thing at a time and be laser focused. But that's what we've done, and it's doable.
Yeah.
Because you can, especially depending on your income.
Oh, for sure.
Baby step 5. So baby step 5 is save for college for your children. What do you think about that, Steph?
I mean, it's fine. It's fine. It's kind of a weird topic, right? Because you have kids, like for us, I'm expecting our kids to get scholarships because it's what we did. Like, of course, we're going to save for their college, and the way we've positioned ourselves and with our investments and all of that, we don't really have to worry about that. Mm-hmm. It sounds so weird to say. And I get not everyone has structured their finances like we are. So I think it puts a lot of pressure, though, on your children. What if they don't want to go to college? Mm. The majority now of young people, you know, what do they call it? They go to YouTube University. They learn everything they want to learn through, like, the internet because it's readily available. And so saving for college, specifically the college funds, are riskier, in my opinion, because if your child doesn't want to go to college, then what happens to those funds, right? Yeah. They're restricted funds. They are only allowed to be used on that type of spending, versus investing or different accounts that you do, you have more freedom. Because if one of our girls, you know, decides they don't want to go to college, then having the flexible funds, let's say they want to own a business or, you know, do something like that, then that funds would be available for them to use, right? Restricted funds are great, I think, for certain people that want that tax benefit, or that, you know, are just, it's a non-negotiable in their household, then it's fine. But for us, I think we decided to go a different route.
And we keep looking this way, guys, because we've got our camera, our computer over here, and we've got the baby steps in front of us. So that's why we keep glancing over. But yeah, I completely agree. Here's the thing about step 5, right? So you've got your emergency fund that's beefed up to 3 to 6 months. You paid off all your consumer debt except for your mortgage, and you're investing 15% for your retirement income, which, by the way, I agree, 15%. And the reason why it is 15% is because if you do the math, when you're delaying all these things, when you're delaying investing into Roth IRA and 401k in the stock market, you kind of have to play catch up a little bit. So 15% is, from what I've seen, is why it's 15%. But like I said before, I think starting with 5%, then 10%, then working up to 15%, then beyond if you can. That's what I would do. But anyways, get back to step 5, save for college. Step 5, I think it could be anything. It doesn't have to be save for college for your children. Let's say you don't have children. So you don't plan to have children. Let's say you can't have children. Let's say, you know, you're already on step 5 and you're still single, you know? So I would say, like, use that, like you said, as a general investment. And the best way to do it, in my opinion, is open a brokerage account. So you've got your 401k, Roth IRA, those are your retirement accounts that you can't touch until you're 59 and a half, tax-free, sheltered. And then brokerage aren't tax-free sheltered, but they're taxed in a lower tax bracket because of the capital gains, and they're not really taxed until you sell the positions in those accounts. And you can still do mutual funds. You can still do S&P 500 index funds, which are much safer than individual companies. But that's what I recommend, is to start step 5 with just putting money away into the separate account. And it could be for whatever. And like you said, if you have children, and I'll just reiterate what you were saying, and if they want to start a business or what have you, you can pull that money out. Yeah, you're going to be taxed, but you'll have the flexibility to use it for whatever. You could help them buy their new house.
Well, that's what I was going to say. There's no house on here. So if it's someone that's, just getting started, or, got themselves out of debt and they couldn't get a house because they were in credit card debt, then that's baby step 5 could be to save for a home.
For your home, yeah, that's exactly right. So step 5, yes, save for college for your children. And the 529 plan is what people normally use. That's what Dave Ramsey usually recommends, is 529 plan. But there is restrictions, because you do have to use it for college or for your grandchildren's, but it's all surrounded about certain, those funds have to be used for college. There's a couple of little exceptions, but I wouldn't even play with that unless you're, like you said, they're going to college, and they're going to college no matter what they want or think. That's what they're going to do. Us, the way we were raising our children, is we're trying to be a little bit more thoughtful in what their strengths are, and if they want to be entrepreneurs and own a business, and we're able to help them with that, and and they're just not interested in college at all, like forcing them to go to college and waste 4 years of life where they could be working on a business, I would rather help fund their business or help them start their business. But yeah, step 6, pay off the house. That's the last, one of the last baby steps. So step 6, pay off the house. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, being financially free, that's a big chunk of most people's monthly income is paying off their house. And so, it's hard for me, because we didn't really do it in that order, right? When we first bought our house, we paid basically 2 months worth of payments up front, because we understood that most of the interest is up front on the front end of your loan. And so the first 5 years we buckled down and we just hit the principal as much as we could. And so what happened was that compound effect worked the other way. It's like we hit our principal, we put more towards our principal, so our loan shrunk. So by the time you get to baby step 6, which is where I believe we're at, is we're just paying more on the house as much as we can to pay it off. But I would have hated to have done all of that first to even start paying extra on the house, because we've been in this house, 12 years now? I don't know.
We've been married for 12 years.
Okay, so that's not right.
7 years.
So we've been in this house for 7 years. So can you imagine waiting 7 years to start paying extra? Just that part doesn't make sense to me. But I can see why, like you said, the structure helps.
Yeah, I think the reason why it is one of the baby steps is because it's obvious to pay off your house early.
Yeah.
The earlier, the better. And I did some numbers too, where if you pay it off in 10 to 15 years, you're not paying 15 to 20 years, like in a traditional 30-year span. So if you can pay off your mortgage in 10 years, let's say for dramatic effect, you have 20 years or more of not paying a mortgage.
Right.
Maybe paying taxes and insurance, $200-300 a month, and that's it. So let's say you have a $1,200 mortgage payment, taxes, insurance, interest, principal, and you pay it off in 10 years. Well, you're going to have 30 years, let's say if $1,000, right? Because you still want taxes and insurance, so those about $200, that $1,200 payment goes away, it goes down to $200, you have an extra $1,000. In 20 years, if you invested in an index fund, averaging you 11, 12% returns a year, in 20 years, you could accumulate over $1 million in 20 years. On top of what you're already doing on your 15% investing, and your other safer college or / other things. On top of that, you pay off your home early, and you're utilizing your cash flow, because you earlier said cash is king, and that's why, because the cash that you're able to free up on a monthly basis from your income sources goes into investments that compound over time, that build wealth. So cash by itself isn't king, because when we say cash is king, it's not like put cash into a savings account, not earn interest. It just,
loses value.
It loses value. Yeah, the inflation will eat away at, your cash. So that's not what we're saying. It's like free of cash. Cash is king, because you could use cash to make more cash, to invest it and reinvest it. And so paying off the house is critical. So, but I agree with you that having to be baby step 6 might not work for everyone. Yeah. And I agree with you. Like, if you can start paying down your mortgage up front as soon as you get your mortgage, do that, because like you said, all the interest is front loaded in front of the mortgage. Just the way it's amortized, the banks want to get their money ASAP. And so, yeah, you don't start touching principal until like 5, 6, 7 years. So, what I recommend, if your income enables you to, that's the key. If you have a decent income and you can do some of these at the same time, because we essentially, looking at this, did all of these simultaneously.
Yeah.
And we're able to do that because we've increased our income over time substantially, but kept our standard of living pretty much the same for the past 10 years or so. Just the standard of living increased slightly as our income increased, but all this income, the excess income, we were able to put that towards beefing up our emergency fund, invested, saved for, in our case, we saved to pay to get out of debt. And then we also paid more on the house, and we continue to do that.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and I think you hit the nail right on the head. Is when our income increased, our standard of living didn't increase with it. It's almost like we're like, okay, now we have an extra, let's say $1,000 a month, right? All right, how is that going to be split up? Like, where is that money going? It's never really affected us to where it's like we're all of a sudden making all this money and now we have to cut, right? We've always kind of maintained or have gone up just slightly, even though income has always just gone up. And so I think that's key. It goes back to not missing the money, right? So like when we would get paid, 401k would come out automatically. And so it's like we never really missed that money. You did the same thing with our investment accounts. It would just get split up via direct deposit. And so we never really missed the money because it never came into our account. And so I think having multiple accounts and having one bill account is important, because then you can focus on this one bill account and how you live and all of your monthly recurring expenses. You can kind of organize it a lot better than if you have all the money coming in and then you have to be like, okay, now I have to pay this or now I have to transfer this. It gets overwhelming on top of the current living situation. Yeah. So automating things as much as possible really helps, but you can automate all day. If you have to pull money back out because you're not living below your means or you're not budgeting, then you're creating even more of a mess. So really understanding your position and understanding your strengths and your spending habits is super important when you're building wealth or you're working on a financial plan, because you have to understand, if you're not a natural saver, it's going to be very, very difficult for you to put 3 to 6 months away.
That's right.
You're going to spend it. You're going to be like, it's in the account, especially if you can see it. Like in most banks, you can see all of your accounts in one profile. If you're not a natural spender, get a separate account with a different bank where you can't go into your mobile banking and see how much money you have. So you have to have certain awareness when you're building your financial plan and when you're building wealth, because that's the part that people struggle with. Everyone on day one, they're like, oh yeah, I can budget. Oh yeah, I can do this. What happens 3 months later is they start to get tired of it, or they start to just, you only live once, right? You hear that term a lot. And so,
YOLO.
yeah. And so really just being self-aware and not going crazy, slowly building wealth. Like, we didn't get to this position from one day to the next. We started very small. George started with what, $10 going into your investment account?
Yep.
We didn't miss $10. Like, $10 was a quick trip, spending. It was little things that build over time. Same thing with savings. You're not going to save 3 to 6 months in 1 month. It's going to take time, and these steps are created. This could be years worth of steps.
Yep.
So please understand that you have to be patient. It took you a while to get into debt, and it's going to take you a while to get out of debt. And so I think, if anything, is starting small, starting to save. Like, maybe step 1 could take you a year. It could take you 3 years. It could take you 5 years to even save $1,000. Don't let that discourage you. And there's some extremes where Dave Ramsey says eat beans and rice. And that just depends on your aggressiveness towards your plan. If you're like, I am determined to get out of this situation, I'm going to save $1,000 in 1 year and make that your focal point and your goal. Yes, you're going to have to sacrifice some things. That's okay, because it's temporarily. You're not always going to be eating beans and rice. It's just for a short period of time to get you from step 1 to step 2, or from 2 to 3. It just depends, and it's time, it's patience, it's self-awareness more than anything, I think.
Yeah, self-awareness is key. Understanding how you work, and then work the steps based on how you work.
Yeah.
And if you don't know, just trust the baby steps and just follow it to a T.
Exactly.
Last baby step 7 is build wealth and give.
Yeah.
Build wealth and give. And if you do a deep dive into the baby step, what that means is continue to invest. And usually step 7 is and give is usually retirement age. Yeah. That's when you get to a point where you're build up a lot of money, you continue to invest the money, but then now you're giving. Now you're giving above and enjoying life. And so what are your thoughts about baby step 7?
Yeah, I mean, baby step 7 is going to be like from that point for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Especially if you're able to manage what you've accumulated in investments, then you're really financially free because your money is working for you.
Yeah.
Once you start investing and you're able to live off the dividends, then you're done. Like, all you have to do is spend the money and give whatever your heart desires. And so I think 7 goes to the rest of your life. So your financial plan is a plan that's always changing. It's going to go with you till the day you die, in my opinion.
Yeah. One thing I love about step 7, and I think the reason why he added it in there, is to motivate you. Like, that's the end goal, right? That's where you want to be eventually. And the more you sacrifice, and the more you're willing to increase your income and not live above your income, is the faster you'll get there. Because we're on baby step 6 and we're getting really close to paying off our home. So once that's done, we're on baby step 7 according to Dave Ramsey's baby steps. And it's because we lived below our means, and we watched our budget, and what I love about living below your means is when you were saying that earlier, to me it's more about margin. In other words, we never really so our income increased, but as our income increased, our lifestyle increased too. So we never really, like you said, never really had to sacrifice that much, because we increased with the increase, but never really allowed the margin to suffer. It never equaled. It never was above.
Yeah.
We're always just below our potential of spending, because our goals were to be financially independent sooner. And that's still our goal. And we're right there. We're almost there. We're really close. So, in my opinion, baby steps for Dave Ramsey's baby steps, is phenomenal.
Yeah.
We started Dave Ramsey's Baby Steps, and we went to a couple of his classes and did a seminar even, and we learned a lot. But we just used what we.
Well, and I think we did it right after we bought the house, so we were already in the house. There was no going back at that point.
Yeah.
I think if we would have ran into Dave Ramsey before we bought the house, maybe we would have waited to buy the house. Like, I don't know, because by then we were already in the house, which I'm kind of glad we were, because we made different decisions, right? We made decisions that worked for us.
Yeah.
But I think if it's like you said, it's a solid plan, and we recommend it to people that are, just trying to get an understanding of their finances and how to get out of debt. Because I think most people, once they realize that they have a lot of debt, that's when they're like, okay, I need a plan to get out of debt.
Yeah.
And that's when they start researching and looking. If you can get out in front of it, like if you don't have consumer debt, then that just puts you at the next step, which is great.
Yeah.
So, it depends on the lifestyle. It's not a one size fits all. Financial plans are not a one size fits all. Sometimes, you have to customize it to what makes sense to you and what's going to keep you going in the long term.
Yeah. Well, there you guys have it. That's our take on Dave Ramsey's 7 baby steps and what we
did.
Thoughts. Yeah.
I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't, share it with a friend, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.